Yeah, that's
Put
what.
in-
Last time.
You bring in heaters.
When they were here before, they told they'd remove all the annexes. And I told them, I said, well, we're finished, you know, I mean, in other words, the cost would have been all set. So then I went back to court. I came back that afternoon, they were still there, and they said, well, maybe we could do a breezeway between Eva's office and the courthouse. Show me how, so they showed me, and it would work, you know, I mean, it would be dumb, but it would work. And so, basically, they went on with the application, and we never, you know, see, this stucco that's on the courthouse was put on in the 30s, and it's very bonded with that brick, and to remove it, would remove part of the brick. Now, they did talk about some clear surface that they had or something other like that, but like Nancy's saying, it'd be very expensive to remove that, reapply that, and when we have every other building on the courthouse square that is stucco building, it just doesn't make any sense, you know?
Well, it's been stuccoed longer than it was brick.
Exactly.
1888
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how.
1930.
A lot of people consider me an antique, and that was from the 40s, and that
Well,
30s.
on that point, Joe,
We need to vote on that.
on that point, around anything over 50 years old now is classed as historic.
Mhm.
So I think that's been brought in as their so big a catchment of what they want to do.
So don't stucco me.
So,
Well, women do that
Don't stand still
themselves.
so it all boiled down to, I said, well, basically, if I don't take the, would you give us the grant that what we need, the full grant, by keeping the existing structure on the back, the 1580 structure, and they wouldn't commit to it, but they said that's a no. But they say you'll probably get enough points with everything else to get a pretty sizable grant to help you the rest of the building. I said, well, okay, again, I'm gonna keep my mind open, I'm not gonna, I said, well, what does that exactly involve? I mean, and then they go into the conversations about, well, we'll need to do research on the original colors of what the courthouse would have been through analytical data of paint and so, okay, here's what I have to say on that. So basically boils down to, there are grants available through the National Trust, and they have what they call an emergency fund. They've probably talked to you about that with regards to with the emergency stabilization of a structure that is imminent to fall down or collapse. There are monies there to enable professional services to be paid to start drawings to correct the problems. So there's monies there to do it. Their process is they like to have this master plan, which involves mapping out what you're intending to do to the structure, interior, exterior. They also, as part of the master plan, require a building cost estimate of what the work were to do on that. So what they really want to do is a study to take the building back as it would, with new windows, take back the exterior to the original brick, interior paint, bring it up to snuff, any wood, flooring, any damaged materials inside, to come up with a budget number, what that would be. I said, okay. So but another factor that I told them you have to take into consideration is that we have a timeline on this. And I know that the head of the Historic Commission, the younger folks that were there seemed to grasp the concept a little bit quicker of what I was coming at with. I said, we have a pretty sensitive timeline. We're trying to get back into the courthouse as soon as we can. We have to move the current Commission's Court and offices over to there before we can even start on the library. And the library wing and the first phase of the Justice Center area, you know, that's pretty hot ticket item. We need to get that going. And so I was then asking them questions on what's their timeline to review. And it basically boils down to, it's basically a month's review process, but then we have to have time to prepare this master plan we were going to. So I think the master plan preparation plus their review will probably be 6 months. That's great, but the problem then is, if everything went fine and hunky-dory, the extended repair that would be needed, interior, exterior, to fulfill their requirements, having done a lot of work with historic books before, I don't think from the time we started the investigation and doing the master plan, for their approval to actually get the work done on the courthouse, I don't think, and then moving folks, you over there, I don't think we'd get much change over more than 2.5 years.
You know, for the public, let me just state this. Not last Wednesday, but the week before, on Wednesday, I was in Karnes County for a deal on the Eagle for Shell. Their courthouse is under construction now, and it's over $8 million, and it's no bigger than what our courthouse is here. They're having come through hoop after hoop after hoop. The Historical Society makes it sound like it's a grant that's great and everything like that, but the additional hoops that you have to go through and the things you have to do ends up costing you in the long run, for like the annexes and things that would have to be replaced and so forth, so on. Is the amount still pretty much intact that you gave us as far as the courthouse itself? Million
I
and a
think,
half,
as far as we can tell right now,
million and a half for stabilization, $500,000 for remodeling?
I think so, it's probably right about, so.
And so, the library and the courthouse and the criminal justice facility that we're looking at, all three of them comes under what the Karnes City's courthouse is costing, with the, if we go the traditional way we've looked at so far. Any other comments? Whatever, but I mean, to me,
I even got to the level, Judge, of asking them, I said, okay, just say your grant was accepted, and you were wonderful, and you give us some money. I asked them how their review process worked, in terms of, you know, are they there at all site meetings, would they be in the construction process? Well, they would come down probably once a month, and I said, well, how about the pay application process if we're using government money? I mean, how does that work? And they said, well, you know, we have to review pay applications to make sure that the work is. I said, okay, we'll just take one stage further. If we came to an impasse, for example, we had a rot issue that no one could see, or a, you know, termite issue or whatever, and it was going to be a original ticket item of maybe a $15,000 resand or restain, versus having to rip out all the walls, redo it, put it back, and we said we didn't have the money, and neither their funding ability, our coffers would support that. But then would you insist that it goes back to the original method? Or would you allow us to say we can't afford it, rather than we'll paneling, we need to come down with the plaster work, please? Again, but we're very easy to work with, and we're not unreasonable. They had to point out every contingency. And again, I'm always trying to be optimist, but you know, we've got to ask those. I've got to ask those pointed questions, because
legislature hadn't voted on that funding yet, have it? Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that's in the air on that anyway. I mean, if they really don't have the authority right now to say, yeah, we can do it.
It was interesting. We sort of started to move towards the end of the meeting, and I was basically of that mind saying, well, you know, it'd be great if we could get this, but I need to bring it to the commission bench to see what their thoughts are. And there probably would be money to do the master plan between the National Trust and the Emergency Fund, because they really love this building. They really love this building compared to the other ones they've got. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm a little concerned that, you know, going through all this, even if you look at it in terms of brass tacks numbers, just say that we had all the point criteria we need. They could probably match $2.5 million. They could probably match what we have, and that's great on paper. But again, if that requires us having to go through 3 years to get there, and how that may affect the scheduling the rest of the other buildings, it's a little bit of a concern. One thing that we found interesting was when we brought that up to say that, you know, if it's all off and it's not going to happen, Sharon Flanagan brought up the point that, well, it's an archaeological site. It's been determined as an archaeological site. I didn't press that much further, because I didn't know what, I had a feeling what she was getting at, but if we basically didn't go that route, that they would still have their little tentacles on there somewhere on that. I need to do some more research, and I think it's.
They have some, but it's less, I mean, it's been voted all historical courthouses, whatever. But once they put the funding into it,
And they have to.
That's where they got your call.
That's
I
what-
just want to see what their jurisdiction is with an archival site.
they do have some jurisdiction allowed them, but what I'm saying is, they also, we have our representatives and senators there
Correct.
that they have to answer to, and if we're making an effort to keep it historical, which we are, and everything, it will be a beautiful building. Common sense should reign over, you know, whatever they would come on to do, you know. So,
So brass tacks of it is, to get 100%, which we could almost guarantee to be doing, we'd have to take this off, which we're not gonna do. We could get points to get us a secondary class level that would probably help us money-wise on the rest. But, I even looked at the point of, again, trying to be open-minded, to say, well, okay, I wonder if we can do the interior work, get you in, get everything working inside, and then they could come and do the exterior treatment afterwards, and still have the Texas historic money. That may still be an option, but no matter what, we have to do that investigative study beforehand. And that's the money. So it's really whether you want to go through.
Because you, in the stabilization stage of it, you might take that one wall off anyway, you know? I mean, so it'd be kind of,
It's sort of we're doing part of it, but then, right, so it's really something that, again, we haven't got to make that decision right now, but I think it'd be worth just visiting to see if you want to go through the effort to do that, but they're very encouraging on the money end, and I think we would qualify for a significant amount, but they're not thinking about the practicalities of the timeline for the county and the time and construction schedule for the other ideas that we have. So,
well, now, I may sound very impatient or whatever, but I think the timeline's important for several reasons. We're in the middle of a growth that this county's never seen before as far as Eagle Ford, you know, people coming here. We've got business to carry on, and we've got opportunity now to address those needs. We've got rising arrests, which means rising members in the courtrooms that need, the courtroom space is needed, the personnel will be needed. We need to do this and move on so we can be more at taking care of the responsibilities we have to the growth of the citizens of the county. Is what way I see it. That's one.
and there's one very big particular item as well, that the length of time to calculate on your end there, what is that number? It could swing in terms of funding and.
Question on the emergency funds that you were talking about. You know, I would guess the stabilization area, this would be considered an emergency
I
fund.
think it would be.
Does that also include having to do all of these testing? I mean, if it's an emergency, do they really want us to
I
wait
think it's
2
still,
years?
they'll still require,
You have to have a master plan no matter what.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, if you were gonna present a case against them, I mean, as far as the stucco itself, in the 70s, they did the remodeling of the courthouse with a grant from Historical Society. That stucco has been there since then
Oh, yeah.
and prior to that, so why all of a sudden now is that such a pressing issue that, you know, and like I said, that's just in case we had to make a case as to why we were doing what we're doing.
To me, you know, emergency funds means we need it now, and the idea of having to go through a 2-year process to get emergency funds.
That wouldn't be by.
I hate to sit in the emergency room for 3 years when somebody look at
So what you're saying is,
National Hospitals.
for like what she's saying, for the emergency fund, we're looking at 3 years?
No, that would be, I'm thinking that'd be something that they probably want to put them, there may be, we need to go through the detail a little bit more on it. Again, they gave us information to go with, they wouldn't offer a lot of the actual, you know, sort of read this, and so I think the emergency fund, I think that would be much shorter deal, it'll probably be a month, 6 weeks application for it. We can investigate that no matter what, but what again, I don't want to do is get into that. I wanna make sure, find out what's gonna, where's the stinger in that, if there is one. That you know, part of that needs to be, well, we don't want an assessment of whatever else or whatever else.
If that domino falls, what does it hit? I'm in favor of saving all the money that we can, and I'm sure everybody else is, who's sitting at this table. My concern is, based on conversations that we've had in the past, when Ray was still the auditor, conversations we had about the last, I think there's a real possibility that we could get a grant and end up spending more money than we're spending if we just do this right here on our own.
We fundamentally got to believe that.
And not have a better product in the end. If you were gonna do that, time's an issue as well, but if you were gonna do that and have a much better product in the end, then you have to take a look at that. But I think the potential exists that we could spend more than what we have right here on that building, not have a better product, and have to wait 2 or 3 years to make use of it in a time, as the judge said, when growth is tremendous in our county and therefore space and the need for it is great.
But once you give them, we go out for a grant and we get it, we give them the authority,
We lose all
we
control.
lose all the rights
All
of that courthouse.
Well, that's, I was trying to get him to actually say they would commit to that. That's what I was asking all the questions around about that. We don't lose all control, but they are part of finding money, so
They come back,
They
even
come
after you're in
back.
it, even after you're in it, they come back and
Right.
say, you know.
Yeah, 'cause we
you-
talked,
I remember Ray talking about the wood that had to go around the window frame and that wood's no longer available and you had to find an old building that was.
Long lead pine.
Long lead pine. But would that consider, the emergency part, is that all considered the same way?
No, the emergency again is more, I think they use part of it for the Newcastle County because that was such a bad state. They use the emergency element there too, which is why they raised the issue, but my concern is where it stops. We take the money to start with and where it stops.
My suggestion would be, we spend a lot of money to find out what was wrong with the courthouse, how to stabilize it, what we're gonna do, and how we're gonna do it. I suggest that we proceed with what we're doing, present our plans once they're complete to them, and ask for that money under our plans. If it's available, we'll take it, but we're not going to remove the stucco, we're not going to remove the annexes or any of this.
I think that's the way forward, but I think no matter what, we will need to do that master plan eventually. And I think part of that, which again is a month's review process, there's money, they're saying there's money to help develop that master plan. And we have large chunks of it. We have the historical data from the 70s. We have that small report in the 80s. We have work that we've done so far. We have money that's already been estimated to your envelope and secure that. So I don't think there's, we have probably 65% of what we need is putting the rest of the elements together. It may be worth doing that, running above the flagpole and just saying, in that third day review, we've got the emergency money, so that the National Trust will give us money to do the master plan. And I think there's money as part of the emergency fund money as well that can help develop a master plan. Because they know one, you have to have one to have the other. So I think there'll be money there to maybe cover that master plan investors.
Since you visit with them, you probably have a better understanding of what might or might not be available.
Right.
If you wouldn't mind preparing something for a state rep and senator, basically, as, that we're gonna submit our plans, ask for these monies in whatever way. And we've got a ranking senator in Zacharini, he's the first or second in seniority up there, and then John Temple's very close to us on the House side that will work with us. And there at ACOG, there's a senator and a representative from outside our area that works closely with us, that we can get that to those four and have some clout as far as,
Right.
working with seeing if it's available. If it's not available, if they say no, we're no worse off, we're better off than
county is down there with their one courthouse that is over the cost of what all three of our facilities are gonna cost. I mean, we've been very fortunate that the school was available, that was able to work things that it has, and it's an exciting time for the county. I think that, we're gonna have to kind of get a real grasp of our costs so we can know what we, is the auditor's report anywhere close to being finished? I mean, from outside auditor?
They had called, they postponed the exit audit, we were supposed to have it on the 28th, and something came up, and she was conferring with Dawn to get another date. I've not heard what that date is,
If-
but as soon as that exit audit is done.
You're getting pretty close to having all the information you need, so you can give us the final figure. So we can.
Well, we got, yeah,
But we need that to go to,
I understand.
to the, our advisor and say, you know, this is what we're gonna.
We're gonna try the next week or so to get that done. Again, you know, so we actually get the numbers, put together the hard cost numbers,
Mhm.
except, so and like I mentioned to other jurisdictions, I would really make sure you've got a good contingency line, and you're not gonna use it, and make sure for the funding end, if you ask and you get approval for more, doesn't mean you have to spend it. I mean, we did on the other, we came in under on each one, but it's always good to have that, you know what you're gonna get.
Lindsay, one thing I'd like to ask of you, you have met with probation, DA's office, clerk's office and everything. And I had someone said that they was requesting, one of the entities was requesting more, whatever. You pretty much, I think we've been real fair in space and accommodations and things of this sort. Before we add any on, I suggest we come back to the court with it because, well, the DA's office asked for more space now than what they've had. And they had add-on rooms available and everything else, and that was just not what we talked about, you know. And, we've got to start looking at costs now too, you know, very much so.
Oh, very much so. I don't think we've actually, on our square footage, we haven't actually added any more.
But I don't know if he contacted me, but I was told, you know, we cut it off at that entrance over
And
there.
that's still, that's the way it is.
They want more
We added some
storage space, you know, and
Mhm.
Well, the room is there, but we weren't, in my mind, we weren't, we know it's there, but in my mind, it can be accommodated elsewhere.
as long as the room's empty, we can move and store stuff in, but we don't need to remodel it.
Right.
Right.
I agree.
But you feel this layout here that you presented today, is pretty much within the, what you presented the cost?
Yeah, I think we're fine. I think we've got some extra in there for air conditioning, I believe, just in case. We've added some more in for air conditioning, because I'm not sure, we haven't really talked about how good or bad it is, but I think when we're crawling around, I think we need to have more.
Well, the addition of all these offices are gonna make a different load.
And that's right. So we almost had to get to this point to have a look at that. But again, if you look at these here, these were gonna be glass storefront separators between these, almost sort of just hovering the space. And they're only gonna go up sort of 8 feet, you know, like you have that, you can keep conversation private. But, again, try not to impact the structure as a whole, you as well. But then the rest of the doors, spaces are the same.
Commissioner's under glass.
We'll give them blinds, so.
Well, I think the important thing is to, you know, when we get to the costing area, that if it starts to get over budget, there are areas that we can go, oh, well,
Well-
we can cut this and we can do this.
Or we just don't, you know, we don't paint that area, we don't strip that area, it just, it needs another 5 years and we'll have a coat of paint then.
Yeah. Or we don't give them glass, we just give them a window.
Right, so that's nice. Can't get that. So I,
Anyway,
yeah, so I think that for the most part,
They were secretary.
that would work for most people.
and that's why the importance of, the only concern I have was in the courthouse is when we get into floors, how bad they are. There's certain areas we know that this is bad here, this is area over here, needs to be dealt with, but, that's that concern. Well, actually both.
And then the staircase, you would look at another staircase,
Right.
see what it.
So again, on things like that, I'd rather have a large contingency in place, you don't have to use it.
That looks good to me.
Any comments, questions? Anyone in the public have any comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much.
So it should be-
She's a creative little creature.
I'm gonna go chat with her, and that's what design the city. Yes, that's what I'm going. That's a good idea. I want to do that.
She said, well, if you put that out, that would make a reception area, and it's, so they can walk in, they come up the top of the stairs and then it's already there.
We don't want my guys, but you guys have 5 foot term radius.
Oh, no, no, I thought.
And 18 out of 16 is
Fine,
But I will not look at that.
but, well, she's good out there,
That's
so.
a lot for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not,
We're
it's
about
not.
to do them, I think.
One more week.
Okay, item 17, bills.
Well, that's all right, we signed them.
She's, oh,
Where's she?
they've already got
She's
them.
right here. Everybody.
Yeah, everybody's looked at them, but she does.
I looked over it,
You look under it?
through it.
Send it?
Okay, everybody review the bills, motion? Commissioner comments, Wiley, all in favor? Aye. Return.
So what you been up to?
Oh, try that.
Hanging in.
Try that.
I'm surprised. Big barbecue thing with the Lions Club yesterday.